if I could only choose one company that here at NAB has been a disrupting force for years and years, it would be BlackMagic. They're always coming out with cutting edge, low cost, relatively, equipment that changes what we think we can do, which is why I'm very happy to have next to me Mr. Bob Caniglia. He is the Senior Regional Manager for BlackMagic. Bob, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you for having us.
Now, BlackMagic, as I mentioned, you have that reputation for being disruptive. You give us gear that can do things that we only thought you could do with gear that was far, far more expensive. Is that just in your DNA? Do you like being the NAB troll?
Well, I wouldn't qualify it as a troll, but I understand what you're saying. But yeah, I mean, the whole business was founded on enabling the entire universe, for that matter, to be able to do the kind of high-end production that we have been accustomed to doing, but only at the high end, where it was a very selective group that could have access to that equipment. So we want to bring the masses access to great equipment at a low cost, and that's what we strive to do.
Now, BlackMagic has also the distinction of being in many different parts of the broadcast workflow. Some companies are really good at cameras, some other companies are really good at switchers, some other companies make, well, the editing software that we need. BlackMagic has a finger in pretty much every part of the pie. What was the thinking behind spreading out versus, say, sticking with your incredibly successful cameras?
Well, it's interesting. We did a lot of acquisitions over the last several years. I came from the DaVinci acquisition, which was back in 2009. So I went from being the youngest guy at DaVinci to the oldest guy at BlackMagic. It was kind of a rough weekend, but and so the thing about it is that we did that acquisition. Then we did the Ecolab acquisition for live switchers, and then we did the Teranex acquisition. We've done a Cintel acquisition. We bought Fusion. So we've bought some players in different areas, and then we've been able to leverage the incredible IP that these companies had and cross-pollinate, if you will. I mean, the cameras really came out of, well, we have live switchers, now we need cameras. We have DaVinci Resolve, so we know all the foibles of different camera codecs. What if we made one that didn't need one? What if it was an open source type camera where you just use the file straight away and we put metadata in and all these kind of things. So each of the products sort of helps to feed the other areas. What else do we need here? Oh, we could make that. And we definitely try to build the products that we think are needed, but also we're inclusive. We don't, even Resolve works with all the camera standards. I mean, so it's a little bit, we're not really on an island by any means. We just happen to make some products at some price points that are attractive to everybody.
That was actually going to be my next question, which is if each product category informs another project category, because you get 4K cameras and you say, well, we need a better 4K switcher. And if you've got a 4K switcher, you say we need a better 4K capable media converter. And then the editing software needs to be upgraded. How much of that is coordinated and how much of that just say goes out because we've got a new product and the other divisions will catch up?
Yeah, I think that we take Grant Petty is our CEO and he looks at it all. And I think a lot of things are much better planned than they sometimes appear, but and oftentimes people show up at NAB and they'll say, oh, you should build, and there's probably most of the time there are already products that are in his head anyway. But yeah, sometimes you do run into a roadblock, and the perfect example was this year when we introduced this Duplicator 4K. The idea was we're doing all this 4K content, but how do we distribute it to people? How do people actually get to watch it? So, and we weren't thinking of like the Hollywood studios. We're just thinking about, everyday people who are out there doing a press conference and they're doing it in 4K, and then how do they get it to somebody? So we made this great little duplicator that has 25 card slots, and you can record 25 at once in real time. It's got an H.265 encoder, and then you could daisy chain them so you could record 150 or 500 cards or however many cards you want to hand, and then just hand them out at the end.
Let's go ahead and make the transition into the hardware, because the hardware is what people really like to see. I geek out every time I go to BlackMagic's booth at NAB. Show us this duplicator, because when you first brought this to the booth, I thought, oh, it's a switch that has ventilation. That's not ventilation. Those are SD card slots. You've got 25 of them there.
Right.
So and you've already said what the use case is. This is if you need to duplicate media, but was there such a big demand for this, or was this just something that BlackMagic made and now people are saying, oh yeah, I want that in my workflow?
Well, yeah, I mean, what we really designed here is it takes up to 12 gig SDI in. So it's a live video in, like right now. We could have taken the output of your switcher and put it in here and started recording a whole bunch of, so actually, you think about that. I'm a guest on your show, and you guys have these recorded on the side, and I pull off and I go, hey, Bob, thanks for coming today, and here's the segment that we just did. And you can also hit append, so if you want to stop for a little bit, and then when you re-record, it actually continues to record in the same file. So now you don't have a bunch of files, because the worst thing you need is take a disk that has a bunch of files. You just want the one file. And these cards will play right back into a 4K TV, or on a card slot in the computer. So it's just, it was one of those things where you could see the eureka moment during the press conference where people are like, I could use that. I could use these at the kids' school, and we could, record the dance recital or whatever. So I think there are a lot of different uses. I hope that we find people will give us new ideas on how they were using it. But it was well received, and whenever you release a product that's sort of out of the ordinary, what you hope is that they get it. Because if they don't get it, then it doesn't do anybody any good. And this one definitely was one of those products that people got right away, and so it's been a big hit, and we're happy on. But more importantly, it's shipping now.
Yeah. Go get one.
Exactly.
That's the message. Now, it's interesting for a company to occasionally, maybe once in their lifetime, make a product that no one else has thought about, no one else has produced, and then it becomes, oh yeah, everyone needs to copy that. But BlackMagic seems to do that a lot. You came out with the first, I'd say user buyable, not a studio, 4K camera. You came out with some absolutely fantastic media converters that everyone uses if you need to have that in place 24/7. Last year it was the Studio Mini cameras that got people thinking, I can have a super high quality micro four thirds camera that ties into my existing SDI network, and it's the size of a GoPro. What makes you come up with products that no one else is risking on yet?
I think what it is we try and look at the industry and say, where are the problems? Where are the shortfalls? What do we think people need? And a lot of us at the company, we have production backgrounds and things like that, so we think about it. Even years ago, we made the camera converter, so you could convert HDMI into fiber, and you get talk back and all these other. It's like, where were those things back in the '80s when when we were trying to use walkie-talkies to talk to each other? So I think that it's we assess the market, and you say, all right, where can we fit something in that's a little bit different? Because without a difference, then you're just making the same thing everybody else is making. That doesn't really do us any good, other than sometimes we hit prices that are insane. But like that micro studio camera, it was the size of a tennis ball. So before it was shipping, I would just carry a tennis ball and say, it's this big.
That's one way to do it. Now, we were drooling over both the 4K and the 1080p version of that micro studio, but there was another camera that you had on the wall last year, and that was the Ursa Mini. You've got, okay, show me this, because this is very gear lusty. This is an Ursa Mini, but it's set up unlike any other Ursa Mini I've ever seen. Tell me about what you've got in your hands.
Yeah, so this is the Ursa Mini, a studio version of the Ursa Mini, basically. What we announced at NEB last year was the Ursa Mini body, and then at IBC we said, look, the PL version of this camera is now going to have lens control. So for studio style lenses, this is an ENG type lens, a very expensive one, but a good one. So there were a lot of people who said, look, we want to use your cameras in the studio camera configuration because you can shade the cameras directly with the SDI return input and all those kind of things. And so we said, all right, well, we need to be able to power and control the lens. We put the port here, and if you have a B4 mount, we have a B4 adapter, so you can use it on the PL version. And then this year we said, all right, well, to complete that in the studio use, we need a viewfinder. So we wanted to make a really high-end viewfinder. The original studio camera had it all built in one, but that was really designed for churches and schools and things like that. But this one, let me get around. Sorry.
There are too many toys on the desk right now. All right, there we go.
So this one has a 7-inch screen, has an articulating, arm, and we can also actually swivel it back and forth or move the camera. So I mean, it's just got the buttons and the functions that the typical guys that are out there shooting sports and whatever, this is the kind of viewfinder they want. So we took the extra time to really build a high quality viewfinder, powers off the power and get the source off of the camera. And this will come later in the year. It's not quite finished, but we wanted to let people know that in addition to adding the new software that they can control the cameras in a studio environment, we also have a new studio viewfinder on its way. So it has tally and numbers. I have camera number 1 on here, and yeah, this product, I think this was also extremely well received, because it was like, yeah, that's what we want. Because sometimes what we do is we make a product and then we kind of make that pro version. There's like the HyperDeck, then there was HyperDeck Studio Pro. The next generation of products tend to really step it up a notch. And then in this case, in the Ursa Mini, we have a whole new operating system that's coming out later this year. It's an amazing way to get around and navigate the menus without this extensive menu tree that we have now, because we had too many features. So we are doing a complete rework of it. And that's been very well received. Of course, everybody wants a beta copy of that, but it's not available yet. But just to give people an idea that we're not finished with this camera, and clearly we're not from a hardware standpoint or a software standpoint to expand its capabilities.
That brings up something that might be an uncomfortable topic, but I think we should talk about it, because our audience, as much as they love BlackMagic gear, there is a certain expectation that the very first feature set that comes out, the very first firmware that comes out, is always going to be, well, it's not going to be as good as it's going to be in 6 months.
Right.
And some people say, oh, well, BlackMagic releases with bugs. I like to think that BlackMagic releases and then they add on the features as they find out that users want them. What's that development cycle like?
Well, I think what it is what we try to do is announce what it's going to have. And then when it comes out, people go, well, now we need this, this, and this. And that's all fine. And a lot of times what we try and do is, it's a tough, when you have hardware and software and you're trying to make them both work together, you want to get to a point where you can actually start shipping these things. And you want to try and do it so that you're not leaving things out. But and especially because they're free upgrades,
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to complain about, well, I mean, you get a great camera right now, you get a great platform right now, and then they're going to add all these features. And then people will say, well, why aren't those available now? It's well,
yeah.
Okay, sure, yeah.
You can only do so much, and if we anticipate that something is going to take longer to do,
Right.
Is it worth? Wouldn't it be better to get the cameras out and have people be able to use them than to keep delaying it? So that is a push-pull type of thing that does occur. Although this year with the products at the show, most of them were shipping now. So that was a mantra we were trying to do.
I actually see this as a good thing, because if people didn't want the gear, they wouldn't care.
True.
All right, Bob, what's next? We've got the Duplicator, we've got the cameras, you've got this thing that, well, my co-host for our Maker Show, we know this very well. This is an Arduino, but it's got some interesting shields stacked on top.
So what we built was a 3 gig SDI Arduino shield. So we were able to put a SDI in and out on a mezzanine board here to throw on top of an Arduino. And then, this is actually one of the Grant Petty's specialty, he built this himself to control the cameras. So you can iris up and down, you can turn the tally on and off, and then you can change the focus and whatever. And what we're doing is we're just selling the board itself. People can buy their own Arduino. And really it's just a tinkerer's thing. People will make whatever they want to make with them. We're gonna ship the boards themselves in the next 6 weeks or so. They'll be $95, and people can buy their own Arduino and then build their own. So we're gonna include a disc that has the control breakouts for the controlling the cameras, and then some schematics for people to play around with. So this is like an engineer's little tinkering toy idea.
And for me, this sums up BlackMagic in a single product shot, and that is, you like to invite the people to tinker. You want people to take your gear and find out what they can do with it, rather than you telling them this is what it does and buy it and then leave us alone.
And then that's why we put out our SDKs on a lot of products. Even the Micro Cinema and the Micro Studio cameras last year have that expansion port that we called the hackable camera. You write your own interfacing, because at the end of the day, we shouldn't be telling you exactly how you do something. You should be able to, have some creative freedom. That's how we, create cool shows like this.
We have been speaking with Bob Caniglia, Senior Regional Manager at BlackMagic. He's been showing us all his toys, all the new products that you're going to find at the BlackMagic booth. Now, Bob, if they wanted to find out more about the Ursa Mini, they wanted to find out more about your Duplicator, they wanted to find out more about the Shield, or anything else that BlackMagic has at their booth, of course, they should come to the show. But if they can't make it here, where do they find you?
Then they can go to www.blackmagicdesign.com.